Rocket News. I'm your host, David Harrison. And today we have a riveting technology conversation that's going to dive deep into a couple areas that I think everyone's interested in. And the topic of the day is CI/CD pipeline methodologies for mobile applications. I'm going to say it again, for mobile applications. Very important that we talk about this because this is something that most of our customers are struggling with. And I have two experts on the call today that's going to help you through this. Give opportunity for them to introduce themselves. Colin, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Colin Shelton. I'm the Android architect at Bottle Rocket.
Thank you, Colin. Russell.
And my name is Russel Mirabelli. I am a mobile architect focusing on iOS here at Bottle Rocket. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I love to talk about, David.
All right. Well, let's start off with the obvious question. What is CI/CD?
I'm going to field this one, Colin, if you don't mind.
Feel free.
So CI/CD, there's a slash in between the CI and the CD, stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. And what that means is on a regular basis throughout development, we are bringing together all of the things that are being worked on by all branches of the team, by all groups, to make sure on a continuous basis that they are passing basic coding tests, they are meeting established coding standards, using mechanical tools, well, software tools, but mechanical tools. Importantly, rather than human checking, we're relying on the tools to ensure quality. And the part that I'd really like to focus on today, David, is less the continuous integration portion than continuous delivery, getting builds into the hands of interested parties at appropriate times, which really means all the time.
Interesting. So what does that mean, right? Because my understanding of continuous delivery means that there's a big bang theory. It just shows up at the back end and we download it and we're able to operate the applications based on what we see. You mean there's integral steps in between there? So what does early development options, what does that look like?
Okay, so I'm going to keep going here, Colin, and then I'll give it to you in just a moment. But I like to divide projects into a set of phases.
Okay.
At Bottle Rocket, we get lucky in that we get to kick off a lot of projects as brand new entities. But the techniques that we use at that point of delivery are often and probably should often be different from techniques that we use when we are in the midst of getting development really underway and we're approaching release into the wild. And that's different from the techniques that we should be using when we have submitted to our various app store and play store. And that by separating our thought into those different phases, that can really help us clarify for ourselves what the job of continuous delivery is during each of those phases.
Okay.
I know, and it seems a bit arbitrary, and it really is. But I like to think of it in those three phases for a little clarity of thought.
Okay, but the topic of the day is distribution methodologies. So
That's right. And we deliver software in different ways during different times.
okay. All right. So Colin, help me understand that then. So if we're delivering software continuously, as Russell has so eloquently put it to us, how do we do it? What are the methodologies that we use to actually push software?
Well, some of the simplest would be a developer just sitting at his desk building something and shipping it off. But that, again, that, as Russell said, would rely on human processes and is not the true definition of continuous delivery. So quite often we will use a third-party site to store the build artifacts and then allow QA testers or someone early in the process to go grab those and bring them to their device and install manually. But that's more of a process than a mechanical or programmatic tool. So what we've been looking at and processes that we can use would be something like Firebase distribution, which allows our testers to have the artifacts sent directly from the CI/CD tool through Firebase to the device and not have a third-party site that they have to proactively reach out to. So that's a very powerful tool. And then, as Russell alluded to earlier, as we get into latter stages of development where we're preparing for pre-release or actually post-release, we can start using the individual store APIs to push artifacts to the store. So for my example, Android would be the Google Developer API, where we could publish APKs, put them in certain types of drafts and stage rollouts.
Okay, so wait a minute.
It's a lot there.
So I want to make sure the audience is catching this. So you said a name in that distribution channel that I haven't heard when you're talking about mobile application. You said Firebase app distribution. Russell?
That is
Help out
really
here.
cool. And this is actually a fairly new offering coming from Firebase. One of the challenges that we have before we've really established a new mobile application as an entity is getting those very early builds to people. And we, on the iOS side, have to use a special kind of signing certificate that only allows to distribute a small number of people. That's called ad hoc distribution, and that detail isn't terribly important to this conversation. But getting those builds to people's devices is always a challenge. And getting the information that we need from users in order to make those builds is a challenge, because we can only target specific phones on the iOS side. We're not able to just give a build to people and whoever gets that build in their hands is able to run it. We have to target it to individual users. Firebase app distribution manages the process of getting those identifiers and then later handing builds that are properly signed for those people onto their devices. So it handles this whole, frankly, technically complex and the kind of thing that nobody wants to be an expert in. It handles it for us.
Okay, so that's interesting, but I'm old school. So why would I want to do something automated without having human checks and balances? I mean, Colin, help me understand why or why not would I automate and deploy to a live site without me having the ability to check? I'm a bit old school here now, so you got to bring me up to the to the new way to work here.
Well, generally speaking, when we're talking testing and QA in the Firebase, that earlier stage where we're going through Firebase distribution, the QAs have been responsible, historically, QA technicians have been responsible for pulling the appropriate versions. There's lots of overhead there. As a developer, I've had many conversations where I've been, well, what version are you on? Are you sure you're on the most current version? There's a lot of room for human error. And so what this allows us to do is remove the element of human error and push the APK in Android's case to the tester, and they know they have the most up-to-date version. And with sophisticated software plugins and libraries that we can attach into the application, we can actually, when built in a test mode, it can prompt the user or the tester, in this case, who is the user, to download the newest version. So we know that they have the most current version of the app, what version they're on, and that removes a lot of just cyclical back and forth with discussing what version are you on. And so just removing the human error is a big part of this.
Okay, so we got checks and balances in the system now that allows me as an old school developer to feel more comfortable with allowing the process of automation to take place, as we used to call back in the day, shifting that process left within the continuous delivery life cycle to give better outputs as we move that toward the stores. So we never typically deploy automatically to a store without that final check. So Russell, help me understand, am I bypassing something here or what's happening?
We are, so you do have so let's talk about after we've exited this early period and we're getting ready for our releases. We can then deploy, as Colin mentioned earlier, directly into something called Test Flight on iOS. And there's a Google Play beta functionality that allows us to give pre-release builds to trusted individuals, our beta testers, trusted client team members who know the project and know where it's at, so that they can review it as appropriate. And then once we have that clearance, we can promote those builds into full-on acceptance through the App Store and release to our users. We have that ability to, like I said, perform that as a singular task, so that while we are going to hold on to a switch for the actual release to users, because of course we trust ourselves, we trust our tools, but we still verify. We do retain that last minute trigger as a manual step, as a means of self-preservation.
Well, this has been really interesting, right? So trying to figure out how an old school person like myself can let go, and how we can improve upon our processes from a continuous delivery. Can each of you take me through 2 minutes of why this is so important to a development lifecycle? Colin.
Sure, I'd love to. So I would say one of the main things that makes this important is, again, automation, removal of redundancy, in that human intervention keeps getting in the way, slowing the process down, and just making sure things are correct. And with being able to deploy to the stores or different testing tracks within the stores, we make the lives of our project managers and the people responsible for maintaining the store listings much easier. As Russell said earlier, we can upload to a test track, go through proper testing there, and then promote to the next track, and then an internal test, and then finally to production. Interestingly enough, when with the Google Play Store, we can do stage rollouts as well. So even if we wanted to, we could directly publish to production in a staged fashion, and that initial is 10%, and then we see what happens after that. So we can kind of put our toe in the water, see if we're not having serious issues, and then get back onto the site, and then with manual intervention, flip the switch all the way to the right, let it all deploy out, and have 100% distribution. So just the removal of repetition and making all the processes more automated, more consistent, and less error prone is really the benefit here.
Interesting. So Russell, as we close out, one of the things we always got to weigh with removing the human factor out in automation is risk to the business. Is there a risk to the business or brand by automating in this way? And if it is or is not, can you help us understand the benefits of this type of automation?
I don't think there are any particular risks associated with going in an automated fashion towards our build mechanisms. We hold on to that final switch that keeps us safe. But what we've really done is we've removed a lot of risks. Some of the greatest risks that we have are trusting individual developer systems to make builds for our customers. And even if you're on a very small team of developers, less than 10 developers, if I have 10 developers on my team, I have at least 11 different configurations of all of the build tools involved in making an app. We remove that variability, put it all on a centralized, repeatable, reliable system that nobody's particular whims are associated with, where somebody is allowed to take a vacation if they need to, and we still make ourselves available to deliver a product. We take away that reliance on ourselves. It is a hard lesson to learn, but we have to not count on individuals when we're building real, repeatable software.
Outstanding. This has been very educational, right? And for my audience, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. This has been Bottle Rocket News. I'm your host, David Harrison. Until next time, stay safe.